Okay, so today we're diving into the world of medical devices.
Hmm.
When I hear medical, I immediately think doctors, nurses, the front lines.
Right.
But you've got all this information here about medical device assemblers.
Hmm.
And it really makes you think, like, without the people actually building these devices, the doctors wouldn't even have the tools that they need.
It's so true. You're right. It's easy to kind of overlook that whole manufacturing side of healthcare, right?
Yeah.
But it's just as crucial. And what I find fascinating is just how diverse the field is.
Really?
I mean, we're talking everything from those everyday things like bandages,
Yeah.
to those incredible imaging machines that you see in a hospital.
Wow, okay.
Did you know that there are over 2 million different medical devices actually available on the market today?
2 million.
Yeah.
Okay, that's way more than I pictured.
It's a lot, yeah.
So I can see why you were saying this career path,
Yeah.
offers a lot of
Yeah,
variety.
absolutely, yeah.
The guide mentions some assemblers work with these tiny components,
Yeah.
like, the tubes for IVs or even the needles,
Hmm.
while others are putting together, like, the bigger, more complex machinery, like the MRI machines.
Yeah,
Talk about a range of skills.
that's right.
And speaking of skills, I'm curious about what an entry-level assembler's day-to-day actually looks like.
Okay.
What can someone with, maybe less experience expect to be doing when they first start out?
It's a great question. And I think it really highlights how this career path can really evolve, right? So early on, yeah, you might be working with those smaller devices, often non-electrical things.
Okay.
Imagine like assembling those little sterile pipettes,
Right.
the ones that are used in labs.
Yeah.
Seems simple, but that precision is so important
Yeah.
because you're building the tools that doctors and scientists are relying on. So attention to detail is super key from day one.
That makes sense. Yeah. It's not just like slapping something together.
Yeah.
You're part of a chain, basically, that impacts patient care, even from that entry level.
Yeah, absolutely.
Makes you realize, too, like how important quality control must be in this
Oh,
field.
100%. Yeah, even a seemingly small error could have like huge consequences.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about devices that like go inside the human body or
Mhm.
they help diagnose like life-threatening conditions. So the work requires just like this incredible focus
Yeah.
and a real commitment to following these really strict manufacturing protocols.
It sounds like the stakes are really high,
Mm.
which I imagine could be pretty intense.
Yeah.
Especially for someone who really, thrives on doing things right.
Totally, yeah. And that's why this field is really well suited to those who find that satisfaction in the meticulous work.
Yeah?
And that dedication to precision isn't just in the assembly itself, it extends to the entire environment.
What do you mean?
So we're talking about clean rooms with like these super strict cleanliness protocols, often involving, specialized gear, gloves, and masks and things like that worn throughout the day.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I could definitely see the appeal for, people who like things to be orderly and,
Mhm.
perfect.
Yeah.
But it also makes me think about the flip side of that, right? Like, it's not just the satisfaction of doing things right, but then there's also this pressure, I imagine, of knowing that even a small mistake could have some pretty serious consequences.
Yeah.
So, what's it actually like to work with that kind of responsibility day after day?
Yeah, it's definitely not for everyone. You need to have a certain temperament, let's say, to thrive in that kind of environment.
Yeah, bet.
But, a lot of people find that the importance of the work itself, that they're having such a direct impact on helping others,
Right.
that is like a huge motivator, It's
Yeah.
that human element that really makes a big difference.
That makes a lot of sense. And speaking of the human impact, the guide also touches on how these devices are evolving, right?
Yeah.
We're not just talking about the scalpels and the stethoscopes anymore.
Right.
You mentioned AI diagnostics earlier, and I was like, whoa, that seems like a whole other level.
It is.
So from an assembler's perspective,
Mm.
what does that even look like?
Yeah, it's a great example of how this field just keeps you on your toes. Imagine you're assembling the components for a device that's using machine learning
Okay.
to analyze medical images. And it could even detect early signs of disease.
Wow.
Or think about the wearable devices that are out there
Right.
that can track someone's vital signs and then transmit that data to the doctors in real time.
Wow.
So assemblers are now working on the cutting edge of technology
Right.
and contributing to devices that could potentially revolutionize healthcare.
That's incredible.
Mhm.
It seems like something straight out of a sci-fi movie almost. But then it makes you wonder, with all these advancements happening, what does the future hold for someone who's maybe considering this as a career path? you know?
Right. Yeah.
Like, what are the opportunities out there for growth and advancement?
Yeah, and that's what makes it so interesting, right? So those skills that you develop as a medical device assembler can be like this, I don't know, like a springboard almost to all sorts of other roles.
Okay, like what?
Well, you could, rise through the ranks and become a team lead, for instance.
Okay.
Start sharing your expertise with newer assemblers.
Right.
Or let's say you have this knack for spotting those tiny imperfections, right?
Mhm.
You could move into like a quality control role.
Okay.
You could be like the guardian of all those high standards.
So you can move up, like, within the assembly side of things, eh?
Exactly, yeah.
But what about branching out?
Yeah.
Because the guide also mentioned things like moving into engineering or design.
Yeah.
So how does that transition happen?
Well, because you have all this hands-on experience working with the devices, you have this invaluable perspective.
Yeah.
You understand like how those pieces fit together literally,
Mhm.
which is so valuable when you start talking about like designing the next generation of medical devices.
Right.
So it's not uncommon at all to see assemblers kind of transition into those roles, and they bring all that practical knowledge to the table.
So it really is, like you were saying earlier, it's not like a stagnant field at all.
No.
There's always something new to learn, new technology to master, which I imagine keeps things exciting.
Definitely.
But it also probably means that you have to be comfortable, constantly expanding your skill set
Yeah.
to kind of stay ahead of the curve.
Precisely. And that's actually where those certifications come in that you were talking about earlier.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, the guide mentioned GMP, good manufacturing practice.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, I kind of skimmed over that part
Yeah.
because it seemed like, just industry jargon.
Right.
But now that we're talking about, like, the importance of precision and safety,
Right.
it makes me realize that those certifications are more than just, like, letters after your name.
For sure. For sure. So GMP, that's a great example because it's all about making sure that the manufacturers are following like these standardized procedures every step of the way.
Great.
So that's like from the handling of the materials all the way to documenting each stage of assembly. It's about minimizing risk and maintaining that like critical level of quality.
Right. Okay. It's like a stamp of approval then, showing that a manufacturer is serious about quality and safety. So it makes sense that it would be so important in an industry like this where, people's lives are on the line.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Are there other certifications too
Yeah, there are.
that can kind of demonstrate your expertise?
Yeah. So you
Wow.
had ISO 13485, I think, in your research.
Right. Yeah.
And that one's all about quality management systems, but specifically for medical devices.
Okay.
And it's a globally recognized standard.
Oh, wow.
So it can open doors internationally as well.
Wow, that's impressive. Okay, so we're talking about a career path where you can start with, like, those hands-on assembly skills, but then potentially move into leadership, quality control, even like the design and engineering side.
That's right.
And then on top of that, you can boost your prospects even further by, like, pursuing these certifications.
Yeah.
It sounds like there's a lot to consider when it comes to, like, actually landing a job in this field.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's not just about having the skills, but it's also knowing how to present them, right? How to
Yes.
really showcase them. And that's where that tool that you found comes in, RoleCatcher.
Oh, right, yeah.
It's not your average, like, job board, is it?
No, definitely not. I was actually really impressed with what I learned about RoleCatcher. It's like having a career coach,
Yeah.
like right there in your back pocket.
Great.
It analyzes your resume, your cover letter, helps you tailor them to each specific job that you're applying for,
Yeah, yeah.
which I can see how that would be so useful in a competitive field like this.
It's all about highlighting those skills and
Yeah.
that experience that's most relevant to that specific role.
Right.
And then that just increases your chances of getting noticed.
Exactly, yeah.
And it goes beyond just the resume stuff too, right? It helps you prepare for interviews.
Yeah. They've got that feature where you can practice, like, answering those common interview questions,
Oh, that's great.
which, let's be real, that can be kind of nerve-wracking.
Oh, yeah.
So it's nice to have that little extra bit of preparation.
For sure. For sure. Well, it sounds like you've uncovered a really valuable resource for anyone who's serious about this career path.
I think so, too.
Yeah.
Wow, we've gone from tiny components to, like, the future of healthcare with AI and 3D printing.
It's amazing.
Quite the deep dive.
It really is, yeah. And I think what's really stood out to me is your focus on that human element of it all,
Yeah,
You're really drawn to the idea of, like, making that difference.
absolutely, yeah. At the end of the day, it's about knowing that you're skills and your dedication are contributing to something, way bigger than yourself.
Right.
So for anyone listening out there, if you're looking for a career that's, you know, blends that precision technology, but then also has that deep sense of purpose, then becoming a medical device assembler might just be that perfect fit.
I think so too.
A field where even those smallest components, can have the biggest impact.
Well said.
Well, thanks for taking this deep dive with me. It's been really eye-opening. And listeners, be sure to check back next week for another deep dive.